Gather your choppers, load up on Dakka, and get ready to paint the battlefield red with their blood. Both theirs and yours actually, as we explore the greenskin-infested anarchy of Warhammer 40,000 Battlesector's ORKS DLC.
Orcs always win, even when we don't.
What you need to know before picking up this DLC is that you need to get ready for heavy losses. Orcs aren't big on tactics, masterfully crafted weapons and armor, or self-preservation. Quite the opposite. They're all about aggressive, noisy, and brutal smashing into the enemy face first. By the way, did you know Warhammer 40k orcs are actually mushrooms? Their ranged weapons are overall less effective than those of the other factions, but they are louder, and that's considerably more important in our culture than actual effectiveness. Because the orcs function as Warhammer 40k's equivalent of comic relief, in as far as this grimdark universe can support anything close to comedy. Even though their ranged weapons are lackluster, orcs are a bit better when it comes to melee damage, but even here, in order to be efficient, you need to have a lot of units and expect many of them to not make it through. There are some very cheap throwaway units that look like goblins but are called Gretchens, who do very little range damage from a range of 1 and who act more as cannon fodder than anything else, but let me tell you, they can come in very handy to finish off enemy units after you've already smashed 2 or even 3 other units into them and not killed them. Not only are orcs technically mushrooms, but they were purposefully genetically engineered by the old ones to fight the Necron about 60 million years ago. Orcs rely on their sheer weight of numbers. Not more than the Tyranids, surely, but you can spam a lot of cheap units on the battlefield. In the lore, the orcs are a species of Xenos exclusively interested in warfare, but they seem to come from a separate comic book universe where painting stuff red somehow makes it go faster. However, due to the general rules of the Warhammer 40k verse, when enough orcs believe something, this thing becomes real. So any machine that is painted red will go faster than others. Painting rockets yellow will make their explosions bigger, and bashing together different pieces of technology without any actual understanding of how they work, but willing them to function together because they look cool, will actually make them work as intended, or willed for in this case. This is meant to explain how they have giant mechs and cybernetic implants, and these mech units are some of the best performing of their faction in Battlesector. One particular feature of the faction, which works with the entire theme of a shared communal pool of willpower that makes thoughts into reality, is that their expensive solo model hero units impart passive area of effect buffs to units surrounding them. The war bosses The Boss is Watching, for instance, will buff melee accuracy and range damage, while the Big Mech's custom force field will offer an extra layer of ranged armor, and the Pain Boy's The Dock is In will increase the HP of units within range. Thus, you'll want to distribute your hero units much more carefully and keep all the other units much closer to them at all times in order to benefit from these rather powerful buffs. Some orc units also have self-buff abilities, but these are fewer than other factions, since they have these powerful passive AoE ones. Their troop and ability trees are fairly simple as well, with seemingly fewer options overall, but that doesn't mean you don't have a variety of units at your disposal, and the unlockable ones are some of the more specialized and highly important units to sprinkle into your army, like the Lutas and Flash Gits. In regards to Battlesector's momentum mechanic, orcs gain momentum for kills, but they gain 3 times the momentum for ranged kills, which emphasizes how more difficult these are for them, and even more crucially for the in-world flavor of the orcs, the amount of momentum a unit has at any one time will buff that unit with increased range stability, armor piercing, and critical chance. Planetary Supremacy mode has changed it again, and it feels more balanced. Your usual territory matches still focus on killing 80 points worth of enemy army units, but when it comes to the strategic points, you now have to control a 5x5 square zone in the center of the map. Whoever has more units in the zone for longer will win. Obviously, this means the fewer enemy units on the map, the better your chances of success, hence the fighting. But keep in mind the purpose is to get your units inside the zone. Don't let yourself get distracted by the fighting and lose sight of this like I did in this situation. The enemy AI has improved quite a bit in the intervening months since I talked about Sororitas. It now seems to be making use of many more melee focused units, at least in Planetary Supremacy mode, flooding the battlefield, because the army limit has been increased to 30 units now from 20. so you can field way more cheaper units if that's what you want to do. One other improvement to the game, this time not gameplay impacting but very cool nonetheless, is the new army management screen, which features not only larger and color-coded images of the units, but also really cool 3D renders of them which you can rotate and study in detail. This is a particularly useful touch if you're also into miniature painting and want a cool 3D reference. The Core Knight demons have also suffered some modifications from what I can tell, but more on them when I'll talk about their dedicated DLC. If you want to see more videos about Battlesector, click the link on the screen. I've been Stephen Anstons, thank you very much for watching. I have a Patreon and I'll see you in my next video, Emperor willing.